Anna had never been one to snoop, but the week before her wedding, nerves gnawed at her in ways she couldn't shake. The house was alive with chaos, flowers arriving early, her mother double-checking the seating chart, phone calls from relatives flying in, and the constant hum of Julia, her best friend and maid of honor, fluttering through the rooms with her effortless charm. It should have been the happiest, most exciting time of her life, yet Anna couldn't ignore the dull pressure in her chest, as if something vital had been left unsaid. Daniel had gone out to run an errand that morning, and she wandered into his office to look for envelopes she needed. The desk drawer was slightly open. Inside, not just papers and receipts, but a dark leather-bound journal. It looked out of place. Daniel wasn't the journaling type, or at least, she had thought so. Her hand hovered above it, a war beginning in her mind. She knew it was wrong. She knew that the foundation of their relationship had always been trust, that Daniel hated intrusions of privacy. But then she remembered the way he'd been distracted lately, the way he sometimes fell into silence even when they were supposed to be making decisions together. Against her better judgment, she pulled the journal out, the leather warm against her fingers as if holding onto secrets of its own. She sat at the desk, telling herself she'd read just a line or two, just enough to know what it was. But once her eyes caught the handwriting, neat and slanted, she couldn't stop. The first entries were harmless, scattered thoughts about work, his father's health, memories of childhood. But then, a few pages in, her heart froze. I don't know if I'm ready for this marriage. Anna is perfect in so many ways, yet I can't silence the voice that tells me I'm stepping into a cage of my own making. I fear losing myself. She read the lines twice, her chest tightening, the words slicing deeper than she expected. She turned the page. Sometimes I wonder what life would be if I had chosen differently, if I had listened to my heart instead of my head. Julia, God, she's always been around, like a shadow in my life. She makes me laugh in a way Anna doesn't. She challenges me, and I hate myself for thinking of her when I should be thinking only of Anna. Anna slammed the book shut, her hand trembling so hard she almost dropped it. For a long moment, she just sat there in stunned silence, her ears ringing. The sounds of the house, the ticking clock, the faint murmur of voices downstairs, faded into nothing. All she could hear were his words repeating in her mind. Julia. She makes me laugh in a way Anna doesn't. Her best friend. The woman she trusted more than anyone. The one who was supposed to stand beside her in 2 days, holding the bouquet, smiling as Anna vowed herself to the man she loved. The journal slipped from her lap to the floor, the thud snapping her out of the fog. She quickly shoved it back into the drawer, pushed it closed, and stood, her breath shallow. She couldn't confront him, not yet. If she did, everything would explode before she even had time to think. She plastered on a smile when Julia poked her head into the room, hair falling out of its braid, asking if Anna wanted to go over the playlist again. Anna nodded, her throat dry, her lips curving in what she hoped looked natural. But as Julia chattered on, Anna studied her, searching for cracks. Did Julia know? Did Daniel say anything to her? Every laugh, every glance, every touch of Julia's hand on Anna's shoulder became a question mark, a threat. The rest of the day was a blur. Anna moved through it like someone else was inhabiting her skin. She said the right words, made the right gestures, but inside, her thoughts churned, rewinding again and again to those journal entries. At dinner, Daniel was animated, talking about the rehearsal the next evening, how he dreamed about the honeymoon in Italy. His hand brushed hers across the table, warm and familiar, but she couldn't feel comfort anymore. All she felt was the weight of the words he had written, like ghosts sitting between them. That night, lying in bed beside him, she couldn't sleep. His breathing was steady, his arm draped across her waist, but she stared at the ceiling, rigid and cold. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw Julia's face beside his in the journal's pages, saw the possibility of a life where she was only a placeholder, the safe choice while her best friend was the spark he really longed for. By dawn, she knew nothing would be the same. She told herself maybe he had just been confused, maybe writing in the journal had been a way of venting fears he never meant to act on. But the fear that it wasn't just words, that it was the truth of his heart, dug into her like claws. She dressed in silence, kissed him on the cheek when he left for breakfast with his brother, and as soon as he was gone, she returned to the office. Her hands shook as she opened the drawer again and pulled out the journal. She needed to know more. She needed to see if there were entries that contradicted the ones she'd read. If somewhere he had written that he chose her fully, that Julia was just a fleeting thought. But the deeper she read, the less hope she found. Julia has this energy that pulls me in. I keep telling myself it's nothing, that Anna is who I should be with. But should is not the same as want. She dropped the journal onto the desk, while rising in her throat. The words felt like poison. Her entire body trembled with the effort of holding in the scream that wanted to tear its way out. Instead, she pressed her fist to her mouth and forced herself to breathe, to think. She couldn't tell anyone, not yet. Not Julia, not her mother, not even Daniel. The wedding was 2 days away, the invitation sent, the guests arriving. What could she do? Call it off and face the humiliation? Confront him and risk hearing him confirm her worst fear? Or walk down the aisle with a secret burning a hole in her chest? She closed the journal, shoved it deep into the drawer, and whispered to herself through gritted teeth, "Not yet. I'll wait. I'll watch. And then I'll decide." But even as she said it, a crack had opened inside her. And once it was there, it could never be sealed again. Anna tried to tell herself that nothing had changed, that she could simply slip back into the rhythm of planning flowers, rehearsals, and smiles. But the journal's words followed her everywhere like a second heartbeat she could not quiet. At breakfast with her parents, she pushed eggs around her plate, nodding at her mother's excited chatter about the reception. But her mind replayed Daniel's line about Julia, making him laugh. Every time her phone buzzed with a text, her stomach dropped, half expecting it to be Julia with some hint, some careless phrase that would confirm the worst. By the time the rehearsal dinner rolled around, Anna's nerves were stretched to the breaking point. Daniel was attentive, holding her hand, joking with her father, kissing her temple in front of their guests, but every gesture felt staged now, a mask. She caught herself studying him, searching for cracks, wondering if every smile he offered her was practiced, if his eyes wandered to Julia when he thought no one noticed. Julia, radiant as always in a deep blue dress, was everywhere, pouring wine for the guests, whispering in Anna's ear about last-minute plans, laughing with Daniel when they crossed paths. To anyone else, it would look innocent, natural, the comfort of long friendships. To Anna, it looked like betrayal in plain sight. Later that night, after the guests had left and the house was quiet, Daniel pulled her aside, his eyes soft. "You've been distant," he murmured, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Is everything okay?" Anna forced a smile that nearly cracked her lips. "Just nerves. You know how weddings are." He kissed her forehead, whispering, "You have nothing to worry about. It's you and me, forever." But the words didn't soothe her. They curdled, because she had read his truth, and his truth wasn't forever. It was fear, doubt, and Julia. The next morning, Anna sought out Michael, Daniel's older brother. She couldn't carry this weight alone anymore. They met at a cafe under the pretense of discussing seating arrangements. But as soon as they sat down, Anna pulled the journal from her bag, her fingers trembling as she opened to the damning pages. Michael frowned as he read, his brow furrowing deeper with each line. When he finally closed the book, he let out a long, heavy sigh. "I wish I could say I'm surprised," he admitted quietly. Anna's chest tightened. "You knew?" Michael rubbed the back of his neck. "Daniel's always been restless. Before you, there was another woman. He nearly broke off that engagement too. He loves deeply, but he gets trapped in his own doubts. It's like he can't commit without looking over his shoulder." Anna's pulse roared in her ears. "So what do I do? Am I making the biggest mistake of my life?" Michael met her gaze, his voice low but firm. "If you ignore this, you'll regret it. Marriage isn't something you walk into with doubts this deep. If he's thinking about Julia now, he'll be thinking about someone else later." The words cut her to the bone, yet part of her wanted to defend Daniel, to cling to the life she had planned. But people have doubts before marriage, don't they? Isn't that normal? Michael shook his head slowly. "Not like this." They left the cafe in silence, Anna clutching the journal as though it were both weapon and curse. She returned home to find Julia waiting on the porch, a smile lighting her face. "I've been looking for you. We need to finalize the timing for tomorrow." Anna's throat closed. Julia's presence felt suffocating now, her voice grating, her every movement suspect. She couldn't stop imagining Daniel's words. Julia makes me laugh in a way Anna doesn't. That evening, Anna decided she needed to know for sure. She lingered in the shadows of the garden while Daniel and Julia spoke on the back patio, their heads bent close. They laughed softly, too softly, the kind of laughter people shared when they thought they were safe. Anna's nails bit into her palms as she fought the urge to scream. When she finally stepped into the light, Julia startled, Daniel quickly straightening, his smile faltering. "We were just talking about the toast tomorrow," Julia explained too quickly, her cheeks flushed. Daniel added, "Anna, don't look at me like that. It's nothing." But it didn't feel like nothing. It felt like everything. Her chest burned with betrayal, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Do you have any idea how this looks?" Daniel reached for her hand, but she pulled back, the journal's words raging in her head. "Anna, I love you. Please don't doubt that." Julia's eyes flickered with guilt, or was it pity, before she slipped away, leaving Anna and Daniel in a silence that throbbed with unspoken truths. That night, Anna's mother knocked gently on her door. "Sweetheart, you seem upset. Don't let nerves ruin your big day." Anna wanted to scream the truth, to throw the journal into her mother's hands and demand she read it, but instead she smiled weakly and nodded. When her mother left, she sat on the floor with the journal in her lap, tears blurring the ink. She was trapped between two worlds, the life she had dreamed of, perfect on the outside but poisoned within, and the terrifying freedom of walking away. As the clock struck midnight, she whispered to the empty room, "Tomorrow I'll know. Tomorrow I'll decide." But even as the words left her lips, she knew the choice had already been made. The journal had planted a seed of doubt that no vow could erase, and the closer the ceremony came, the more it grew, strangling every memory of love she thought was true. Anna woke the morning before her wedding with the journal still pressed against her chest, as if holding it might keep the words from devouring her. She hadn't slept more than an hour, her mind replaying Daniel's confession again and again until her body felt hollow. Sunlight cut through the curtains, cruel in its brightness, as if daring her to step into the day and pretend she was the glowing bride-to-be everyone expected. She couldn't, not anymore. She shoved the journal back into her bag and paced the room, her heartbeat pounding with the rhythm of choices she wasn't ready to make. Confronting Daniel felt impossible. She could already see his practiced sincerity, the way he'd wrap his arms around her and promise that the words were just fleeting doubts. And part of her knew she might crumble if he said it convincingly enough. She couldn't trust herself to resist. She needed someone else, someone who could see this clearly. For a wild moment she considered showing Julia, but the thought made her stomach lurch. What if Julia already knew? What if she had been complicit all along, smiling beside Anna while harboring Daniel's secret affection? No, she couldn't risk that. There was only one person who might understand, one person who had shown her truth already. Michael. She found him that afternoon sitting alone in the hotel lounge, a half-empty cup of coffee in front of him. He looked up when she approached, eyes shadowed with the same unease that haunted her. Without a word, she slid into the seat across from him and pulled the journal from her bag. "I need you to read more," she whispered. Michael hesitated, then opened to the marked pages. His face tightened as he read, his jaw clenching. When he closed the book, he didn't hand it back right away. "It's worse than I thought," he murmured. "Anna, you can't marry him tomorrow. Not like this." The words made her throat ache. "But what do I do? Everyone's here. My mother's already in tears over the flowers. If I call it off, I'll humiliate her. Humiliate myself." Michael leaned forward, lowering his voice. Better to face humiliation now than a lifetime of betrayal. "My brother, he can't hide his restlessness. I know him. He'll deny it, promise you the world, but you'll always wonder if his heart is with someone else. That doubt doesn't go away." Tears pricked Anna's eyes, but she forced them back. "He says he loves me." "He probably does," Michael said, his tone grim. "But love isn't always enough." His words sank into her bones, heavy and unrelenting. She left the lounge more uncertain than ever, the journal clutched to her chest like a lifeline. That evening, while final preparations buzzed around her, Anna caught Julia alone in the kitchen, slicing lemons for drinks. She paused in the doorway, studying her friend, the easy curve of her smile, the casual grace of her movements, the way she hummed under her breath as though nothing in the world could disturb her peace. Something inside Anna snapped. Julia, she said sharply. Julia turned, startled, the knife pausing midair. What is it? Anna forced herself closer, lowering her voice. Has Daniel ever said anything to you? About me? About us? Julia's brow furrowed. Then she laughed nervously. Of course he has. He never shuts up about how lucky he is to have you. But Anna saw it. The flicker in her eyes, the half-second too long before the smile returned. That's not what I mean. Anna pressed, her voice trembling. Did he ever tell you that he had feelings for you? The silence was suffocating. Julia set the knife down carefully, her face draining of color. Anna, don't lie to me, Anna hissed, her hands clenching into fists. Julia exhaled slowly, her voice breaking. He never said it directly, but I could feel it, the way he looked at me sometimes. I thought I was imagining it, and I swear to you, I never encouraged it. You're my best friend. I would never, you wouldn't have to. Anna snapped, her chest aching with betrayal. Sometimes silence is encouragement enough. Julia's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't deny it. Anna turned away, her vision blurring, the room spinning around her. Her worst fears were no longer just ink on a page. They were real, acknowledged, alive in the space between her and the woman she trusted most. That night, alone in her room, Anna opened the journal again. She found an entry she hadn't read before, one that made her breath hitch. If I go through with this marriage, it will be because it's the right thing, not because it's what my heart screams for. I only hope Anna never sees the truth. She deserves the illusion. She slammed the book shut, the words burning in her chest like fire. The illusion. That was all she was to him. A convenient dream, a safe harbor, while his heart beat elsewhere. She curled on the bed, clutching the journal, sobs tearing through her body until she was too exhausted to cry. By morning, her decision still eluded her, but something inside her had shifted. She wasn't just the victim of Daniel's hidden truths anymore. She was the one holding the weapon. She had the power to expose him, to ruin the facade he had built. The only question was whether she had the strength to use it. As she dressed for the rehearsal, Anna caught her reflection in the mirror. Her face was pale, her eyes shadowed, but there was a steeliness in her gaze that hadn't been there before. Whatever happened tomorrow, she would no longer be the woman Daniel had underestimated. Tomorrow, the truth would no longer hide in ink. It would breathe, and it would burn. The rehearsal dinner felt like a stage play she had been forced into. Each smile rehearsed, each toast hollow. Anna moved through the evening like a ghost, her dress fitting perfectly, but her skin crawling beneath it. The journal weighed heavy in her purse, a silent bomb she carried from room to room. Daniel, ever the charming groom-to-be, raised his glass and thanked their families with a steady voice and radiant smile. He looked at her often, and to the unknowing eye, it must have seemed like devotion. But Anna saw it differently now. She saw the calculation behind the glances, the way he reached for her hand only when eyes were on them. She wondered how many of these gestures were meant for her, and how many for the illusion. Julia sat across the table, laughing at jokes, clinking glasses. Anna's gaze locked on her once, long enough to see the tension hiding under her composure. They both knew the truth now, though no one else suspected. That silent exchange was enough to turn Anna's wine bitter on her tongue. Halfway through the evening, Michael found her on the balcony, away from the chatter. He pressed a hand to her shoulder. You don't have to go through with it, he whispered. It's not too late. Anna swallowed hard, her voice low. If I walk away tomorrow, I'll destroy him. Everyone will know something's wrong. And if you stay? Michael's eyes searched hers. You'll destroy yourself. His words hit like thunder, leaving her trembling. She turned back toward the hall, where Daniel was shaking her father's hand, promising to take care of her forever. The sight made her chest ache. He doesn't even know what forever means. The night ended in a blur of speeches and embraces. Back in her room, Anna lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the journal open beside her. She thought of Daniel's line, she deserves the illusion. Maybe he was right. Maybe the illusion was safer. But was safety worth her dignity? Morning arrived with a storm. Rain hammered the windows, gray clouds swallowing the horizon. It felt like an omen, a warning that the day ahead would break something irrevocably. Anna dressed in silence, slipping into the gown that once symbolized joy but now felt like chains. Each layer, each button, weighed her down further. Her mother fussed over her veil, tears of happiness streaming down her cheeks. "You look radiant," she whispered. Anna forced a smile. Inside, she wanted to scream. The church was packed. Guests filled the pews, cameras flashing, whispers of excitement filling the air. Daniel stood at the altar, immaculate in his suit, his smile wide and steady. Julia was beside him, her maid of honor dress hugging her frame, her face pale beneath the makeup. Their eyes met only briefly, but it was enough. Anna's heart raced as the music swelled, the doors opening. She walked down the aisle, each step echoing louder in her skull, the journal hidden beneath her bouquet. When she reached Daniel, he took her hand, squeezing it tightly. "You look incredible," he whispered. His voice was warm, but to her ears it dripped with poison. The ceremony began, the words of the pastor blurring into background noise. Anna's pulse roared in her ears. Her mind replayed every page of the journal, every line where Daniel's doubt bled into longing for someone else. She glanced at Julia, who shifted uncomfortably, unable to meet her gaze. Then came the moment, the vows. Daniel spoke first, his voice steady, filled with conviction. He promised to love her, cherish her, stand by her for eternity. Guests sighed and smiled, some wiping tears. Anna listened, her body trembling, knowing the truth beneath each word. When it was her turn, silence fell. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Her throat tightened. The journal seemed to burn in her hands. Daniel looked at her expectantly, his smile fixed, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Julia's gaze flicked up briefly, then away, shame etched into her features. And Anna realized this was her collapse. The moment when everything she thought she had, the love, the friendship, the future, crumbled under the weight of ink and lies. Slowly, she set the bouquet down on the altar, pulling the journal free. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Daniel's face drained of color. "Anna, what are you doing?" he whispered sharply. She didn't answer. Instead, she opened to the final entry, the one she had read the night before. Her voice shook, but she read aloud. "If I go through with this marriage, it will be because it's the right thing, not because it's what my heart screams for. I only hope Anna never sees the truth. She deserves the illusion." Silence blanketed the church. Anna's hands trembled as she closed the book. "I deserve more than an illusion," she said, her voice steady now, stronger than she felt. Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came. Julia covered her face with her hands, sobbing quietly. The guests shifted uncomfortably, whispers rising like a storm tide. Anna's father rose from his seat, his expression unreadable, while her mother clutched her pearls as if holding them could mend the fracture unfolding before her. Daniel finally spoke, his voice desperate. "Anna, please," it was doubt, nothing more. "I love you. Don't do this." She stared at him, at the man she thought she knew, and felt only the weight of betrayal. "You love me enough to lie. To both of us. That's not love. That's fear." The pastor hesitated, looking between them as if hoping someone would salvage the wreckage. But Anna knew there was nothing left to save. Her hands tightened around the journal, and she stepped back from the altar. "I can't marry you," she said, her voice breaking but unshakable. The room erupted, gasps, cries, confusion. Daniel reached for her, but she pulled away, the distance between them final. Julia wept openly, her guilt spilling into the open for all to see. And Anna walked down the aisle alone, her veil trailing behind her, her future uncertain but no longer bound by illusions. Outside, the storm raged, rain soaking her gown within seconds, but she welcomed it. Each drop felt like cleansing, washing away the lies, the doubts, the false promises. For the first time in days, she could breathe. She had collapsed, yes, but in the rubble, there was freedom. The storm outside had turned the world into chaos, but inside Anna was strangely calm, like she had already drowned, and now nothing could pull her deeper. She stood in the church courtyard, soaked through, her dress clinging to her like a shroud. Guests spilled out behind her, voices rising, some sympathetic, some accusing, all hungry for the scandal that had just unfolded. Daniel appeared in the doorway, his suit darkened by rain, his face pale and furious. He shouted her name, but Anna didn't stop. She kept walking until he grabbed her arm, spinning her around. "You've humiliated me," he hissed, his voice trembling between anger and desperation. Everything we built. Ruined, because you couldn't handle a few doubts. Anna ripped her arm free. Doubts? She spat. You planned a life with me while confessing in private you wanted someone else. That's not doubt, Daniel. That's betrayal. Julia emerged behind him, her mascara streaked, her hands shaking. She looked at Anna with swollen eyes. I never wanted this, she whispered. I didn't ask for it. No, Anna shot back, her voice rising. But you didn't stop it either. You let him write about you while smiling in my face. The rain fell harder, drowning the silence that followed, until Daniel stepped closer, his words desperate now. I chose you, Anna. Don't you see? If I loved her, I would have run to her. But I didn't. I stayed. I stayed because you're the one I need. Anna's chest ached. The words might have broken her once, might have pulled her back into the illusion, but now they only rang hollow. You didn't stay for me, she said quietly. You stayed for the picture, for the applause, for the perfect little story. The guests around them shifted uneasily, some leaving, others watching like it was theater. Michael appeared at the edge of the crowd, his jaw tight, his eyes burning with something between rage and protection. He stepped forward, placing himself between Anna and Daniel. This ends now, he said firmly. Daniel glared at him, his voice sharp. Stay out of this. She's my fiancée. Not anymore. Anna cut in, her voice steady, carrying over the storm. I'm done being the woman you keep as your safety net. Julia sobbed harder, her knees nearly buckling. Anna, please, don't hate me. I didn't mean for any of this, but Anna's eyes were cold, unyielding. Maybe you didn't mean it, but meaning doesn't erase the damage. Daniel lunged forward, his hands open as if to beg, but Michael blocked him with a firm push. You don't get to plead with her now, he growled. You had years to prove your love. You wrote the truth, and now she's free of you. The crowd gasped again, whispers hissing through the rain. Some sided with Daniel, muttering about forgiveness. Others shook their heads, pitying Anna. But for the first time, Anna didn't care what they thought. The weight of the journal in her hand was proof enough. Proof that she had seen the truth with her own eyes. She stepped past both men, lifting the journal high before the crowd. This book, she said, her voice echoing, isn't just his. It's mine now. A reminder never to settle for a life built on lies. Daniel shouted her name again, but it was drowned by the storm, by the thunder overhead, and the murmurs spreading through the guests like wildfire. Julia collapsed onto the church steps, covering her face. Daniel dropped to his knees in the mud, his perfect image shattered beyond repair. And Anna walked away, her soaked gown dragging behind her, her body trembling but her spirit blazing with something fierce and new. Michael caught up to her at the edge of the street, an umbrella in his hand though both of them were already drenched. You were incredible, he whispered. She turned to him, her face streaked with rain and tears, her eyes burning with exhaustion. I wasn't incredible. I just finally stopped lying to myself. He held the umbrella over her anyway, a small shield against the storm. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was suffocating. The climax had torn everything apart, her engagement, her friendship, her family's expectations. But in the wreckage, she saw clarity. She had faced Daniel, faced Julia, faced the lies written in ink and sealed with false promises. And she had chosen herself. That, she realized, was the only vow that mattered. The storm passed by morning, leaving behind streets glittering with puddles and a quiet that felt almost mocking after the chaos of the night before. Anna sat at her kitchen table, her wedding dress discarded in a damp heap by the door, its fabric ruined, its meaning gone. The journal lay in front of her, closed now, yet still pulsing with the weight of everything it had unleashed. She hadn't slept, though exhaustion clung to her bones. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Daniel's face twisted in fury, Julia's hands covering her shame, her mother's tears soaking into her veil. She should have felt shattered, but instead, she felt strangely light, as if the storm had blown something rotten out of her. Still, the silence pressed in. Her phone buzzed endlessly, messages from relatives, from friends, from people who hadn't spoken to her in years but suddenly wanted to know what happened. She let them pile up, unanswered. Michael came by mid-morning, carrying coffee and a bag of pastries. He didn't knock long, just enough for her to know it was him. When she opened the door, his eyes softened. You look like you've been through a war. She let out a dry laugh. Feels like I lost one. He placed the coffee in front of her and sat across the table. For a while, they ate in silence, the air heavy but not unbearable. Finally, he spoke. What are you going to do now? She stared at the journal, her hands resting on its worn cover. I don't know. Everyone will talk. Daniel will spin his story, Julia will hide, and I'll be the one they pity. Michael shook his head. No, you'll be the one who told the truth. That takes more courage than most people ever find. She wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. What if she had overreacted? What if Daniel really had chosen her in the end? What if she had destroyed a life that, flawed as it was, could have given her stability? She voiced none of it, though. Instead, she slid the journal toward Michael. Read it, she said. Tell me if you still think I did the right thing. He hesitated, then opened it. Page after page, he read in silence, his expression tightening, softening, hardening again. When he finally closed it, he looked at her with a clarity that made her chest ache. Anna, you didn't destroy anything. You saved yourself from living a lie. He was building a house with rotten beams. It would have collapsed eventually. You just refused to be buried in it. Her throat tightened. Tears she hadn't allowed all night now spilled freely. She covered her face with her hands, sobs shaking her shoulders. Michael didn't move closer, didn't try to comfort her with touch. He just sat there, steady, letting her cry without shame. When she finally lifted her head, the morning light had shifted, painting the room gold. She wiped her cheeks, a bitter smile tugging at her lips. So what now? Start over? Not start over, Michael said. Start honest. His words settled deep in her chest, heavier than comfort, but lighter than despair. She nodded slowly. The journal still lay between them, a relic of betrayal, but also a warning. She would keep it, not as a wound, but as a reminder. Illusions always come with a cost. Later that afternoon, she walked to the park where she and Daniel had taken engagement photos months before. Children ran through the grass, couples strolled hand in hand, the world moving on as if her own hadn't just imploded. She sat on a bench, the journal in her lap, watching the sky clear. For the first time in weeks, she breathed deeply, without fear of the next page, the next lie. She didn't know what her future held, loneliness, maybe, or whispers from those who judged her, but she knew it would be hers, unclouded by someone else's secret heart. That was enough. As the sun dipped low, she whispered aloud, to no one and to herself. No more illusions. And in the stillness that followed, she felt something close to peace.